The Sherborn Select Board meeting of Thursday, October 17th, calling the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. I guess, can I get the Assistant Town Administrator to read the agenda for the executive session?
Of course. Tonight's executive session, we have one item, and that is strategy session to prepare for contract negotiations with non-bargaining employee pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, which is for the DPW Director.
All right, and do we have any discussion relative to that motion?
Just a motion to approve the agenda.
And I second the motion.
All right, it's moved and seconded. Let's take a roll call vote. Paul,
Aye.
Jeff,
All right,
Marion,
Aye.
and I'm aye as well. And as the Vice Chair of the Select Board, I do declare that we need to enter into executive session. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Second.
All right, and a roll call vote. Paul,
Aye.
Jeff,
all right.
Marion,
Aye.
and I'm aye as well. All right, Jeremy or Diane, can you stop the recording?
All right, so I'll begin the open session. Thank you very much. This is now October 17th, 2024. Welcome to the open sessions segment of the Sherborn Select Board meeting at 7 p.m. I'm going to start out by please asking the Assistant Town Administrator to please read the agenda.
Good evening. After I read the agenda, the Select Board can vote to amend or approve the agenda. I have had no request for public comments for tonight. Items may be taken out of order and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance may be added. Item number 1 is the appreciation of Roger Demler. Item number 2 is the 350th update from Mary Moore. Item number 3 is a public announcement regarding Farm Road subdivision restriction. Item number 4 is consideration of ARPA funds for classification and compensation study. Jeremy Marset will discuss that. Item number 5 is the 2025 annual town meeting discussion regarding goals and initiatives. Jeremy Marset will discuss that. Item number 6 is the consent agenda, which is the TA payroll warrant, and a one-day liquor license for Pauline Bounds for a private event at the Sherborn Community Center. Item number 7 is the Select Board update. Item number 8 is town administrator updates. Project updates are the Sherborn History Center and Museum, the PFAS water treatment for town campus, $100,000 grant award. Under personnel is the Veteran Services Officer and staff training. Public information meeting, October 23rd, Phoenix Partners proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Man. Do I have any motions relative to the agenda?
Move approval of the agenda.
Second. Okay.
All in favor? Stephen?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Jeff?
All right,
And Marion?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on. Appreciation of Roger Demler. Marion, is this in your court?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm very happy to do it. Roger Demler just recently announced that he is resigning as a water commissioner after 30 years in that role in Sherborn. And the only reason he's resigning, I hope, is that he's moving out of town, but just barely out of town. He's still within reach, Roger. We still have your phone and your email. So, so there you are. I just didn't want him to get away without recognizing the extraordinary amount of work that Roger has done for the town since he moved to Sherborn in 1976. That's 48 years ago. He's been a water commissioner for 30 years. The first appointed to that position when there really wasn't much to do, but he made it quite a job when questions about town center water safety began to emerge. But just to back up a little, he has an engineering degree from Cornell. He's a lot more than meets the eye in Sherborn. He's an expert in machine design. I learned that he helped design the fuel cells and other things for the Apollo mission back in the day. Outside of Sherborn, he's also, I've learned, a competitive sailor and a competitive classic car restorer. And so there's much more than meets the eye to Roger. But I want to focus on the fact that he, along with Ed Rose and Jim Campbell, initiated the Town Center Options Committee, which was focused on town center water and sewer. They produced analyses, data, reports. You should look back at their report from 2007, contains data on town center water needs that are still valid today. The last we saw of Roger at town meeting was his attempt to get an article through in 2016 to complete the well testing of the wells on Price Woodlands. And it was unfortunately turned down, but now the water world has moved on a bit, but all that work is still very relevant. Incidentally, Roger was also on the zoning board. He was chair of the zoning board when the first 40B project was proposed in Sherborn, the infamous Rising Tide project that is still problematic. He has served he was on the first library building committee group that dealt with the detailed library plans. And incidentally, he's also served on traffic safety and groundwater protection. It's hard to think of anyone who's done more for the town. And I just thought we should formally recognize Roger. And I'd like us to just sign a letter of appreciation to Roger, which I'll help draft. So thanks, Roger.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mary. And that was very well said. I've served with Roger on a couple committees now, or at least I shouldn't say I wasn't on the library build committee, but worked with them through some stuff, and as well as the downtown options. And I couldn't agree more. He's been very dedicated and diligent in follow up on stuff. And I think the town's in better shape over the years, thanks to Roger's volunteerism. Paul, you had a comment?
Yeah, two. First, I wanted to congratulate Roger for his long service to the town and to thank him. Also, I had occasion to work with him over at least 30 years, if not more. But secondly, I wanted to suggest that we issue to him one of the proclamations that we had put together. We have this program, or at least 3 years ago, we had this program of recognizing long-term volunteers. So we have a template. We have already worked out a program, and it's something that they can put on a wall and show people, as opposed to a letter that they read and then put in the file. And the program was well received by all the volunteers, long-term volunteers who got these proclamations of appreciation. So my suggestion would be to modify what Marion proposed a little bit, and to have the staff prepare one of our proclamations of appreciation and issue that to him.
That sounds like a good idea. Is that something I run through you, Jeremy? Or Diane? Okay.
No.
I think it's a very good idea.
I would second.
I'll draft a proclamation and get it over to Marion.
Okay, thank you.
I would second that. I think that was a motion, wasn't it, Paul? I'll second that.
Okay, yes, all right.
All right, all in favor of such proclamation? With Stephen. Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Paul?
Yes.
Marianne?
Aye.
I am I as well. Great, thank you very much. And Roger, thank you. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, can I say a few things? First, thank you for thinking of me. my synopsis of town water and sewer is the town water is pretty iffy kind of thing for the town to try to do it on our own well because of all the complications with PFAS and other things that may not be something we want to take on. But I highly recommend that we consider doing a sewer system for the town center. You can do it incrementally. It's not particularly expensive and doesn't take a lot of money to operate it. So in the long term, I think that's a good thing to do. We have an excellent waste discharge site in Jamison Fields if we want to use it. So that's sort of my summary of water issues. I'd also like to say I'm really encouraged by the improvement in the management administration of the town over the past dozen years or so. It's become more professional. Somehow that's attracted more professional volunteers to do things. A good example is the select board that's become very proactive and professional. So I really appreciate that. But I'm only moving next door to Ashland, so I will be around. And remember, I have a lifetime appointment to the library building committee.
So can
Thank
I
you.
just bring to your attention, Roger, that state law allows us to appoint people to various committees in the town, even if they're not residents.
I know that's a hazard.
So you better lock your door and not read your mail because we got a lot of vacancies and it would be nice to have you on some of these committees.
Thank you, Paul.
Careful what you ask for, I
Yeah,
think
no
is what
kidding.
he's saying.
Yeah. Thank you
At some
all.
point.
Thank you,
All right,
Roger.
Roger.
Thank you as always.
You.
Sometimes I'm curious if you're
That's
taking your
true.
car with you, but I won't ask that.
Yeah,
All right. Again, thank you very much, Roger, and we'll get that proclamation issued. Moving on to item number 2, the 350th update. Mary Moore.
Thanks, Eric. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Great. All right, can you guys see that?
Yep.
cool.
All right. So I want you to note on the top right, I put a picture of you in there with your car, Roger, next to my old MGB that I sold to Melissa Bowman. So now you see the car expert in him. But I just want to give a quick update. It should be just a few minutes. I've provided these in the past, but I think this is sort of the happiest update we have. We had a tremendously successful day on the 5th. It was really one for the history books. I want to thank Melinda O'Neill for really organizing tip to tail the whole Sherbstock event. Kevin Delaney and Doug Ambost organized the music. Darren Buck was MC, performed in his group Hank Wonder, and he was responsible for all the great graphic design. And Chief Ward did a tremendous job with the 350th parade. So I hope you were all able to participate. I think I saw almost all of you over there. It was just a great day, and Mother Nature came through, so that was terrific. Dave Welch, Sean Colleen, Chief Galvin, Ruane, Mike Connolly had a bus to help people get back and forth from different parking spaces. Thank you to the select board and Jeremy and Diane and Jeannie and everybody at Town Hall. All the local churches were welcoming with the parking. We had tremendous volunteerism, and our sponsors really helped us make it a huge event because we were able to make it free. So I'm going to go quickly through the sort of fundraising and budget. I went through a similar format in September. I want to thank Deb for sending over some detail that I didn't have. Heidi's out this week, but she and I will continue to reconcile as pending expenses come in. So far, it looks like we've got about 103 funds raised. Expenses to date, again, this is stuff that's come through Deb's desk, so there might still be a few invoices coming in, is about 63. We're anticipating additional 25,000 that we'll spend between now and the end of the year, which gives us a healthy balance of about 15K. So I think this is sort of the detail that I have here. on the grants and the expenses. And I just want to note that I do think there were about, I think Chief Ward estimated over 200 people participated in the parade. The original plan for the whole event was about 600 to 800 attendees at Sherbstock, and we had over 1,700 register. Our estimate for the day was over 1,500 people over at Jameson, which was surprisingly spacious, even with the big tent and all the food trucks. It really was a tremendously successful venue. We did increase some budget expenses around chairs, tables, porta potties, and we added a food truck. But overall, I feel good about where the budget is and, where we are for the year. So thank you again for all your support. And then just quickly, I just want to kind of go through, we had a tremendously successful event over at Farm Pond, the water and fire event on the 22nd. Mother Nature did not cooperate on the first day, but we were able to just shift it to Sunday, so that worked out. Hopefully a lot of you were able to make it. Heidi down here spotted with her husband in the water and fire t-shirts was really the brains and the brawn behind that whole event. So thank you to Heidi. We had a really successful, oh wait, sorry. I'm out of order here, I apologize. Sorry. Oh, I wanted to just point out that the website has a gallery. All of these events that we've done have tremendous, photos and sort of, it's documented for all the events. So if you haven't been to the website, look at the gallery. You can click through all the photos, and we're adding more every day. We also have on the front page the upcoming events for the balance of the year, so you can check them out there. I want to give a shout out to Abby Fisk, who's been a tremendously successful PR person on this. She has come up with a lot of the creative. She's just really been tremendous. I think if we, ask how did we get 1,700 people to register, I would say it was Abby's doing, but really great work on all of that. And I think we're achieving our goal of community engagement throughout the year. So hopefully everybody feels that I've gotten tremendously positive feedback about all the events, especially Sherbstock and the parade. So hopefully you guys are hearing those good vibes as well. I want to just note 2 other events that have happened since the last update. We had the Sherborn Farm Day on September 8th. Lisa Hudson Walker did a tremendous job organizing a scavenger hunt for the kids. She put together a tremendously informative webpage where you can learn all about Sherborn's farms. And then we had a great Sherborn ride, 50K ride for the bikers in town. And that was on, I think it was on October 12th. So that was a huge turnout as well. And then coming up, we have all of these events. There's a new newsletter that'll hit mailboxes on the 1st, but it's all available on the website. So if you're interested in the New England Stone Wall demonstration this weekend, it's at the library. So that is my update, and I know I went fast, but are there any questions?
Just hooray to you. Hooray
Yeah,
to your
thank
team.
you.
Yeah, no, it's been a
Thank you very
fun,
much.
it's been a fun project for sure. And I'm not going to sign up for the 375th. So if anybody wants to, they can.
We're counting on you for the 375th.
Yeah, no, I'll be over in Ashland with Roger. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you
man.
very much.
Yep.
And the people pulled this together. I can't say enough. It's just been huge. I know the 350th was awesome, and I also particularly enjoyed the one on Farm Pond. You caught it in one of your pictures a little bit there, whatever. There's a point when the weather was clearing, a rainbow came right over Farm Pond. Look, it was diving right into it. It was really
I was there. That's true.
Yeah, it was very nice there. Does anyone else have any comments?
No,
No,
just
just
Mary was also on the library building committee, the library trustees chairperson too. So, we give people many hats. So thanks for all your support and the team.
Absolutely. All right, so moving on. It's the public announcement and the advice of council, a public announcement regarding the farm road subdivision restriction. I'm just going to read a pre-prepared statement by our council, and won't take any questions. I'm always open for questions. Someone's reach out to me, but it's just basically a fundamental statement we have to make. So by vote of the select board and after consulting with the Conservation Commission, Town council is authorized to enter into an agreement for judgment with the plaintiff and/or to otherwise resolve without defending land court action entitled Phoenix Partners Road LLC versus Town of Sherborn et al. Case number 24 MISC 000433, and to take all actions reasonably necessary to in connection therein or therewith. The land court action concerned a restrictive covenant of record that prohibited the subdivision of a lot of land upon which General Laws 40B project had been proposed by the plaintiff. The town, through its Conservation Commission, holds title to a parcel of land that originally held or could potentially enforce the restriction. The ZBA, in its denial of 40B special permit application, referenced the restriction as a title issue that would require resolution. The applicant, more accurately its insurance company, title insurance company, thereupon commenced the land court action seeking a judgment that the restriction was not enforceable. After research and review of the relevant land records and applicable law, town council advised the select board that said restriction had expired, more than 30 years had passed, and that opposing the action was futile. Accordingly, the select board, after meeting and gaining assent to the Conservation Commission, determined that we resolve the matter rather than expend resources to litigate the issue. All right. So moving on to item number 4, consideration of ARPA funds for a class and comp study for Jeremy Morissette.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. So we've talked about it a little bit before, but there is an act relative to salary range transparency that the state legislature adopted this past July that requires employers, Sherborn is categorized as one of the employers that does classify into this and will have to meet the requirements of this act to have pay range postings and disclosure. So we will need to have a formal compensation pay range for all of our positions within the community. And to do so, we need to have that in place by the end of July 2025. To do that, I'm suggesting that we retain the services of a consultant. In your packet, you can see this. I've solicited quotes from 3 different firms. Thus far, I've only received one from the UMass Boston Collins Center for Public Management. Their quotation to provide the services to create a classification compensation plan that would include that salary range that we're obligated to provide now. This scope of work and a work plan is in your agenda packet. Their estimated cost is $27,500, which happens to be very close to the available funds uncommitted in your ARPA accounts. So currently in your total ARPA funds unallocated by the select board, you have a balance of $27,317.41. So
there you go.
More or less enough to cover said study. I'll continue to seek other proposals for this work, but would like your approval to allocate the balance of the ARPA funds towards this study.
Yeah, see if we'll knock $185 off their quote, and just rather than go through the headache of trying to find other funds elsewhere. Stephen, you have a question.
Yes. So just kind of wondering about the scope of this study and the work involved. I do know that your predecessor, Jeremy, the previous town administrator, along with the personnel board, did perform a sort of a salary study that also, went through all of the town employees and all of the categories. It did take them, I believe, two years to get it done. But I'm just kind of wondering, in terms of the scope of this study, is it categorically different from what was done previously by the TA and the personnel board, or is it kind of a similar thing in a more compressed timeline?
It's a similar thing in a more compressed timeline. I have seen the work done prior and previous, and that would be provided to a consultant, but it is quite dated now and hadn't been kept up to current. So unfortunately, there isn't one in place. The personal administration plan, there's a a listing and classification of positions that's attached to that hasn't been updated in several years. So there's not much to work with, so we need to start again. But it's
I mean, I
similar
find it
to
interesting.
that was done previously, but yes, in a more compressed timeline. The work will include as well a review of the job descriptions that the town has. So that is an additional service in addition to the classification and compensation. As part of that work, it's sort of what you'd want to do anyway, so that the consultant would have a better handle on how these positions compare to other communities. You know, are they the same, doing the same types of work, same responsibilities, to help with coming up with the comparables and the salary ranges.
I will say I do find it interesting that only one firm applied, which probably means that probably because I know these firms do this. Most towns kind of want to do a due diligence and stuff like that. Now that there's actually a mandate, I gotta imagine that just suddenly increased their customer base a lot. You know what I mean? That if this is now all right, Marianne, you had something.
Yeah, this is the center, the Collins Center that did the survey for the Council on Aging recently, correct? Is that the same
Correct.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they came up with a good product. I thought it was a good piece of work. I noticed that this outfit is working in a lot of other towns, probably because of the mandate, but including Dover and Millis. We might find out if any of those have been completed and just find out, you know, how the product was finished, or if it was finished on time and all that sort of thing. They seem to have a whole long list of towns. Hopefully most of those are done. They're not underway.
Yeah, I believe the listing of those towns, Marion, in the proposal was completed projects. I know
Oh.
they're currently working with the town of Medfield, and they've been pleased with their work.
Great,
And I
okay.
know that, and the firm that is well known in the industry. Everyone knows them. I know it can be a dual-edged sword because one, if they work in so many communities, they can give you, hey, here's what's actually the market price right now, and they have
Oh,
that
yeah,
information
I
available.
think,
But some of the
it's
things I've
best.
seen them produce are kind of very boilerplate too. You know, I mean, they clearly copied it, and you have a paragraph that might say Medfield by accident or something like that, because it's just because they're doing that many of them. That becomes a little bit of a conveyor belt thing, but they definitely have that base knowledge.
And the price is
Yeah,
best.
Paul, yeah, that's the only price.
So I'm opposed to this. I'm opposed to spending $27,000. I'm opposed to using ARPA funds because that's funds that we can use for anything, and I want to use that to offset some budget items that would be coming up. Also,
Well,
I
certainly.
think
Oh, sorry. I thought.
no, I'm just looking at my list of points. We're overstating the legal requirements here. In other words, if we were going out to hire I don't know, a king, let's say, we have to post the range, the salary range is between, let's say, 80,000 and 100,000. But it doesn't have to be accurate. You could say your salary range is between 20,000 and 150,000. But actually, when you hire somebody, you hire them for a price in between that range. It's not a fixed number. So you don't need the accuracy, you don't need the meticulous attention. And our salary range really should be different from the rest of the state. So it's let's just take a DPW director. What a DPW director gets paid in Boston might be different from what a DPW director gets paid in North Adams. And it doesn't really follow that we can't do a better job because we know our comparables. So when we're going out to post a job, we're in a best position, better than Collins, to determine what are the comparables and set the salary range for which we want to hire somebody. And anything that Colin sets today will be obsolete next year, because that's a function of inflation rates and collective bargaining and maybe who gets elected president and all kinds of unknowns. So to spend $27,000 on what is essentially an academic work that has literally little relevance to us. So if they say that DPW directors get paid $500,000 and the range should be, from 400 to 500,000, would I use that actually in Sherborn? No, I wouldn't. I would base it on the circumstances that Sherborn has. So I see this as a complete waste of money. And I don't want to deplete our remaining ARPA funds. I want to systematically look at ARPA funds to see whether any existing project needs more funding that we've already approved. And I systematically want to look at the capital projects that the town is proposing to do for the upcoming year and see if we can't use the remaining ARPA funds for one of those things. So that's my position. No.
Marianne, what are your thoughts?
I take Paul's point on the use of the ARPA funds. There may be something that in the best of all possible worlds, we would have rather used ARPA funds for, or held the ARPA funds for a better use, although they have to be spent in the next, I don't know, there's a time limit. My
Might be
question,
allocated by December, I believe.
December, okay.
Just dedicated, but not spent, but just committed.
Yeah, committed. Okay, so I think that's a good point. On the other hand, I want to understand better what the mandate is. Does the mandate require that we come up with a comprehensive document of all the positions in town with all this stuff filled in a particular way that the state wants? I need to know more about it, because if that's the case, it is a job to put all that together, unless we already have it all together, which I don't know if we do. I don't think so. I think it would be a useful use of funds, if they have no other use, to get this done and fulfill the mandate of the state. But Jeremy, could you explain the mandate a little more?
Sure.
Yeah, please.
I was hoping and tracking other grant funds for this work. Unfortunately, the community compact grants, they actually ran out of money, so they stopped accepting applications. So I had been eyeing another source of funds to do this study, but unfortunately those funds dried up. There is in your packet, there is a summary, a nice helpful summary from KP Law that just thought was a nice summary of the law, and an act relative to salary range transparency. There is a requirement for pay range posting and disclosure, which will require that the pay range posting and disclosure requirements found in the act will be, specifically the act requires these employers to disclose the pay range for any position in both internal and external postings. The term pay range defined by the salary range or hourly range that the covered employer reasonably and in good faith expects to pay for the position at the time of posting the opening. Notably, the definition does not encompass other forms of compensation and benefit. Not only is it during the time of job posting, but current employees can request what their pay range is. So yes, this needs to cover all of the town positions under this act. So yes, there should be a consistent way that those are developed, and using our good faith to put together what those estimates of payment should be for those positions. We did provide, when they scoped out the work, we provided a list of all the positions that we thought were applicable. There's some 47 positions that data would be needed on. So there's a fairly big list. And there were also some reporting requirements. So, we're gonna have to biannually report, on this act to the state. Again, I think our reporting starts February 2026, and we'll have to report on compliance, but the actual, publicizing or having the pay range available for postings or for, at the request of employees needs to be completed by July 2025.
Okay, Stephen, please.
Yeah, so I agree with some of the things that Paul said, and I think I disagree with some of them. I mean, the reason why I asked is this essentially what the previous TA and personnel board did together internally is, for that very reason. I'm like, do we really need to spend $27,000 on this? I do believe that we do need this resource, this document in hand, right? And one of my questions then also becomes, um, the maintaining and updating of the pay ranges and the classifications. Is that something that you anticipate we would be able to handle internally once this report has come out, or are we looking at spending $27,000-$30,000 every few years to, sort of like the on-site insight report where it's like, all right, well, we have to get them back again every 5 years to do this again, or is this something that we can maintain internally once we have the the structure of it, the template? Um, and then I mean, my assumption, I disagree with Paul's statement that Sherborn should be different from the rest of the state. I think that Sherborn clearly should fall in somewhere within the rest of the state. And I think my assumption would be that we can direct the Collins Center to generate a relevant range based on comparable towns, right? That they are not going to be giving us a range that includes Boston and Worcester and also Chicopee, and it's not going to be the range encompasses the entire state, right? That it will be a relevant range. So I would assume that we can direct it so that this document is actually useful to us. So then I end up in that kind of like mid ground where I'm kind of like, well, yes, we need this thing. Hopefully, if we're going to be paying $27,000 for it, we can get it tailored precisely to what our town needs. And then hopefully, after we have it, the ongoing maintenance can be done internally without additional expense. I think in that scenario, I would be in support of doing this, although I share the general hesitation to use our remaining ARPA funds on something other than a capital project. But I can see the value in this product.
Yes, I'd anticipate that we'd be able to maintain it going forward. We need to have sort of the reset to get something in a format and current numbers that we can then maintain going forward. So would envision that this is not a recurring thing. It's a reset that's very infrequent in need. Part of, I mean, if it is the Collins Center that ends up doing the work, in their work plan, there's initial scoping meetings with them, where we would give them direction. They would propose, and we'd go back and forth on some comparables. Not all communities have the same comparable. Some comparable communities don't have the same positions as us as well. So there's some of that nuance. And certainly this work would be done with the support of the personnel board. It's a natural fit for them to be involved in this as well.
So I'm just trying to think of 47 positions. I did not realize it was that many. I'm assuming it doesn't include any bargaining unit. Is that correct? Or does it include bargaining unit and contract employees?
No.
Employees under individual contracts doesn't cover them? Okay.
Surprising.
Admittedly, 27.5, this seems like a lot, but I get it. There's quite a bit here. I'm reasonably convinced that it is a requirement. The one thing I will disagree with, Paul, is I don't see it rarely in the private sector. I think Tesla did it. they're like pay range $30,000 to $600,000. They actually did something like that crazy because they were required to put such a requirement in there, and they made some absolute nuts ranges. And you don't see that in the public sector. You certainly don't see it in the local public sector. I've seen it made for a couple state jobs, but that's about it. And so that's not the standard, and it's definitely not good practice to put some crazy. It just doesn't. No one takes you seriously. Put some crazy range in there. So I'm probably gonna go. I'm probably vote for this, but I'd like to hear more dialogue, Marion.
Right. An important part of this, or a part that I think may be useful to the town, is the job descriptions, which may be different from other towns. And presumably whoever does this is going to have to get all that information from the town. But presumably, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, the mandate includes putting this information into a particular template that the state wants. Is that correct? Because just the mechanics of getting things into a template that's useful to the state or whoever is mandating this is a fair amount of work. And some of it is busy work, but some of it also is work on job descriptions that may be useful to the town to have an objective outside person or team clarifying job descriptions. We may already have that in our file. I don't know, but that's kind of a question and a comment.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's going to be a specific template from the Commonwealth what this would look like. I think there's some flexibility there, but there will be reporting requirements, likely through some sort of online reporting that might have some templates for us to report. But certainly the job description will be very useful. One thing that Diana and I've been working on is to get updated job descriptions for all positions. And it's taken us a lot of effort and time. And depending on the author of those job descriptions, they're not all sort of consistently worded, which is a challenge to administrate with personnel. So I think there is a benefit to having an entity that has done job descriptions and could help us with, what's the appropriate wording for the type of role to be more consistent with the way that we put together the job descriptions would be very helpful.
I mean, that alone could be enough to convince me, because you are right. And what I've seen, the ones I've seen are very piecemeal, done on different generations by different people. And maybe just having someone come in and boom and make them uniform, kind of like a reset, might help out quite a bit.
So just like with all job descriptions, they would need to be brought to the personnel board for final adoption. So, these drafts that would be worked, in concert with the personnel board and myself and department heads and others would still need to go through the formal approval process for the personnel administration plan.
I see a lot of value in that for the
Yeah.
employees of the town to have a reset and reminder of, what the purview of their authority or responsibilities are.
Especially since we do have some open positions right now that actually, maybe a bit filled by the time it's done. And what's the time range on this? What do you think? I'm sure it's in my packet somewhere, but
I think it was 7 or 8 months.
okay, so it's pretty substantial. All right, I'm prepared to collect a vote on this. I think I know how I'm gonna go. Do I have any motions relative to this?
Move approval.
Second,
All right, I'll jump out at once. All in favor, Stephen?
Aye.
Jeff?
right,
Paul?
No,
Okay, and Marion?
Aye.
And I am as well. Okay, very good. Thank you. Next up, the 2025 annual town meeting, a discussion regarding goals and initiatives. Jeremy.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I just wanted to kind of continue on, and we'll certainly take your direction as far as how you would like to continue a talk on the select board's goals and initiatives for the coming year. So I included in your agenda packet sort of the most current listing of all of the goals and initiatives that we've compiled, with the most recent being additions from Marion. So that's in your agenda packet. Just wanted to provide you with the most current there and just sort of, kind of leave that with you, and we'll follow your lead on how you would like to proceed, or when and how on goals and objectives for the coming year. But tonight I just wanted to sort of put out some of what we anticipate will be some of the town meeting articles that will come before the select board to include on the warrant, or that you may want to sponsor based on what you've been talking about over the last year, and some of the issues that have come up. And just wanted to get your take and sense on, any of these that you would like me to help assist, provide more information on, or, to bring back to you, or not. And just to kind of help me with sort of planning ahead in the coming months of how I can best support you. So that summary is in your packet of town meeting articles that we anticipate. There certainly could be more. It's very early. But on the top of that list are ones that will come before you as proposed by some other boards, such as the MBTA 3A zoning from the planning board. There will be also, in addition to that zoning, some zoning bylaw revisions that the planning board and the building department are discussing. The treasurer collector will be proposing that the town accept the prudent investor rule. That will help allow her to diversify the different ways that the town's trust funds and the like are invested. The town clerk, Jackie, is going to strongly recommend that the town pursue an appointed as opposed to an elected town clerk. So there'll be more discussions on that. And
Is
then
it appropriate, Jeremy, for you to share your screen at this point?
Oh, sure.
We can
Yes.
see the list. Sorry to interrupt.
There you go. Sorry about that.
Thanks.
So those are the top lists that will really just come before you from other boards. There's a number of other things that that I've just been kind of taking a list of, that based on your discussions and meetings over the past year, that you may or may not want to translate into a town meeting warrant article. Such as you talked about the town meeting quorum, and whether that should be changed in the town bylaw. Currently that sits at 100 in the town's bylaws. There had been some discussion on is that the appropriate number or not. We do have some surveys from other communities as far as what their quorum is. Happy to bring that back to the board if you'd like. Next, the personnel administration plan. The personnel board is meeting tomorrow. They do intend to start discussing some updates to the personnel administration plan, some general revisions of that plan. So those likely there will be some suggested revisions coming from the personnel board in general. You have discussed the remote work provision that's in the personnel administration plan. Whether you'd like me to bring more information to the board to discuss that, and certainly we'll be discussing that with the personnel board as well. Depending on the outcome of the ballot vote coming up, you may need to have a warrant article to create a Community Preservation Act committee to help oversee the use of those funds. But that's sort of contingent on the vote outcome. There had been some discussions about trying to merge the Traffic Safety Committee with the Public Safety Committee, in that the Traffic Safety Committee is established by town bylaw, but in the 2 years I've been here, that committee has not held a meeting. So maybe there's not as much value in that committee as there has been utilized. The Public Safety Committee is as a committee that's a advisory committee to the select board that has a lot of scope overlap. So there had been discussions in the past whether to merge those two in some fashion. The Public Safety Committee is planning to meet in November. They have met relatively infrequently as well. Have asked them to put together a schedule going forward of their meetings so that the public knows when they'll be meeting and could anticipate that and bring items before them. We talked about the public meeting policy that the select board initiated, and would that be better codified in a bylaw to, you know, require reporting or some other provisions for public meetings? Certainly the community center lease agreement term extension will be something for the board to consider as a warrant article. There's been requests for us to consider the way that town debt or capital projects are funded, and whether all of the debt should be excluded or some, you know, within the levy. Other ways to fund capital. One of those could be a special purpose stabilization fund, funding capital, but just in general, you know, how best to fund capital and capital projects. And I guess the last one's probably better stated as, back in 2018 town meeting, there was an article at town meeting that convened the Government Task Force 2. That was now 6 years ago. You may want to consider, convening round 3. I believe the report out from that task force suggested that be a regular activity, you know, once every 5 years, which is essentially due. So, you know, again, that was an article at town meeting to allow the town moderator, after consultation with the Board of Selectmen, to appoint a task force entitled Government Task Force 2 of 5 registered voters to recommend changes to town bylaws, etc. It might be timely to initiate that process again. So just a few observations I wanted to get your take on, and, you know, wanted to get any other direction from the board where you'd like some support in the coming year, but also just focusing more on the upcoming town meeting.
All right, well, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to open up a little bit of discussion, and I would actually like on this page, after we discuss things, kind of go down and get a quick sense. Doesn't have to be an official vote, quick sense of what we do kind of want Jeremy to advance on a little bit, and what things you think might not be urgent for next year. We can always change our mind, but I think this is a good starting point. This is a great outline. This is how I remember items as well, and so on like that. So let's start with the order people raise their hands. Stephen?
Yeah, I guess I have a few questions and comments on all of them. Like I guess I can reserve sort of, I won't go down bullet by bullet. If Eric, later, if you want to go down bullet by bullet and get a straw poll. So town clerk elected or appointed, that would be sponsored by the town clerk, is that right?
I believe it would come to you as being sponsored, but she's has mentioned she's going to advocate strongly for it. So
Okay.
I think
I
it's an item, that you'll want to consider
yeah.
based on her input.
I always worry. Oh, great. Jackie's got her hand up. I always worry about the perception anytime a position goes from elected to appointed. The select board, and I've not been party to this because I've always been outside of the select board when it has happened, but there is always broad accusation of it being a power grab by the select board anytime a position goes from elected to appointed. And I think that it would be ideal to avoid that perception, even though I know that Jackie is the one who is sort of promoting and advocating this. But anytime it says that the select board recommends that this elected position instead be appointed by the select board, it's like, oh, really? Did you really think that? So that's one thing that I have. I guess
Now,
I'll
before you move to the next item, can we hear from Jackie
yeah,
before
I
you
was
go
gonna
to
say
town clerk?
I want to hear from Jackie after that.
Hi,
Yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
thank you very much. I asked Jeremy, I had a meeting with Diane, and I asked Jeremy to put this on the warrant list. I am planning on retiring. I do not have a date, but my feeling is that it would not be a good thing for the town to have an elected town clerk for someone that has no municipal experience. The people that work in the office right now are not interested in becoming town clerk. The job has changed quite a bit. I would say that most people have no idea what I do. I've even had people at town hall that work at town, so geez, I didn't know you did this. I didn't know you did this. So I just think that it's a smart idea. A lot of the towns are moving to appointed. My hope is that when I do retire, that the town would find someone that has experience. Um, so I asked Jeremy to put this on. I think it's a good idea.
Okay,
And
thank
I
you for the
don't
input.
care. I told Jeremy that he could put me down as the sponsor, or, you know, town clerk. Um, I can't remember how it's worded, on the town meeting, but like, you know,
Mm,
select board
we can figure something out.
or the town
Sorry.
clerk, whatever. Yeah.
I think right now we're just taking a 20,000 view of these 20,000 view of these things, this right off, eliminating ones Jeremy won't pursue, something like that. So, but thank you for the input there. Oh yeah, Stephen, keep going down the
Great.
list.
Yeah. Yeah, everything else so far I am generally in favor of, down to, let's see, dissolve traffic safety combined with public safety. I feel like this has come up before. There was some issue or concern with the fact that I think the traffic safety committee is composed of sort of volunteer residents, whereas public safety committee I think is primarily town officials who are acting ex officio. And so there was some concern that there wasn't enough representation from the public at large on the public safety committee. So I know that was a concern, but then if traffic safety committee isn't actually doing anything, then I think it makes a lot of sense to combine them. I think that we would want to look to see how we could make that committee, functional, with representation from residents, but not be a big bloated, 12-person committee that has trouble actually getting consensus. Public meeting bylaw, we'll have to discuss that one more. That one, I'm not sure that I would support as being a bylaw change. I feel like as a sort of a general executive rule set by the select board, it's functioning well enough. There's enough gray area, especially with some of the smaller committees. I'm like, I don't know that it's really necessary for the very small committees to be recording and posting on YouTube all of their meetings. And so then it becomes a matter of, okay, well, where is that line get set? And if we're gonna write it into the bylaw, you can't have it vague, right? So we'd have to talk more about that one. I have a question about special purpose stabilization fund capital, because we already have a capital stabilization fund, right? So how would this be different?
Could be different by way of the way that it's funded. In that it could be, you could set up the special purpose stabilization fund to actually have a funding source. And I would have funding occur each year. I think that's probably best part of that overall discussion about how you're funding town projects.
Yeah.
Just be one of those tools,
Okay.
possibly. And how you want to structure your debt, more, there's certainly a lot more analysis to come, but
Yeah.
how, what level of debt and what type of debt, is there other tools such as this that might be at play? So I guess that's part of that overall conversation about capital project funding.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
this is, I'll just speak up. This is kind of my pet project thing. I met with Dan and Jeremy on this, and it's an interesting strategy. You know how I've been trying to get at least not all of our debt exempt from 2.5. I realize maybe not, we'll never get all of it within the 2.5 limit, but might not get, in some attempt to have some debt fall within the 2.5 restrictions. There's this basic fund you can basically deposit, essentially operational funds, and ones you're not paying money, not paying interest on. So so the classic example I use is the roadways. It's 400,000 each year, and maybe it'll go up at some point. But if that's every year, then why pay interest? We've had this conversation a million times, and because you're paying 400 grand, but you can't just turn on the switch and be like, okay, we're just going to allocate 400 in the operational and not do, because you still have debt service you're paying off. So the thought is, as debts kind of tapers, you actually take money and put it into this fund to kind of balance out the overall pain and overall impact. And it'll always essentially be full of money that you're not paying interest on. But like Jeremy said, it can go into a broader discussion of, capital, how we fund capital and so on like that. Things with short lifespans like roads and cars, I'm kind of advocating to somehow use non-interest paying money, whatever it is. You know, I think the philosophy that we've spoken about before about, 30-year lifespan, people who were right in town then versus now and spreading it out, that has some makes sense to it, but not the stuff with shorter lifespans you're paying nowadays like 6% on or whatever it is. Don't correct me, pay me fear.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an important conversation to have about all the capital stuff. So, lastly, I would be in favor of government governance task force 3. That is effectively doesn't cost anything, right? Because it's just moderator picks a committee of 5-ish people. They're all volunteers. They just get together and start talking to people and then make recommendations. Ultimately, implementing their recommendations may cost money, but the task force itself, no cost to the town, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that.
All right. Thank you very much. Paul, you're next.
Okay. Uh, so one of the things I do professionally in my day job is write charters for towns. And as part of that, there's been a recurrent issue pretty much statewide. And that comes from the gradual disappearance of local newspapers and the requirements that most towns have to publish things, to put things in local newspapers and so on, so that we are systematically amending various charters across the state to define newspapers to be not only the paper print, but electronic newspapers, town web pages, and there's a whole list of things that a town can use as if it were a newspaper. This makes life a lot easier for different boards and committees, and it's particularly important for a town that doesn't have a newspaper. And for many years, we had the Dover Sherborn Press, and it was something that most of us read. Now we really don't have a newspaper, and accordingly, it does seem to like make sense that we broaden that definition somewhere along the way. I just throw that out as an idea because it's very popular across the state. Next comment is on the town clerk elected to appointed. There's 2 very strong reasons to have an appointed town clerk. The first is if you're elected, you have to be a resident of the town. And being a resident of the town limits the pool of people that you can have be the town clerk. We're a very small town, and therefore the pool that we have is considerably smaller than the pool that would exist in bigger towns. So the first reason to go to appointed is so that we can tap into people who have been town clerks or been assistant town clerks elsewhere who would be willing to work for the town of Sherborn. The second reason to go to appointed is that elected officials' compensation is not really governed by the personnel bylaw at all. The state law says that annually the compensation of elected officials has to be established by town meeting. And that's been interpreted to mean that essentially it doesn't carry over from year to year. So if in year 1 you're making $200,000, in year 2 you're starting from zero when you go to see the voters and ask them to give you another salary for the upcoming year. This is a holdover from the day that when town clerks got paid by collecting fees, or a portion of dog licenses and the rest were used to pay for town clerks. And then they gradually moved to be salaried, but the salary is treated differently than all the other employees of the town. This would standardize and make it fairer for the town clerks and provide more of a career footing on it. So I support that. I want to speak a little bit about the MBTA zoning piece. The town did vote a home rule petition to exempt us from this requirement. And we haven't pursued that. But in the meantime, the town of Milton has refused to comply. And there was, about last week, I think it was, a well-viewed oral argument before the SJC in which the Commonwealth was trying to justify all the penalties that it wants to impose on the town of Milton. And Milton was basically saying, this is all unconstitutional and illegal and so on. So there is a decision that is going to come. And all of us who are in the municipal law field are kind of holding our breaths to figure out what are the courts going to say about this MBTA zoning requirement. And given that event, and given the fact that we have that home rule petition out there that we could pursue, I think we ought to kind of hold this issue to see what happens. Let the events unfold in the courts and see what direction we get, and then revisit the issue at a later point. And on the issue of the last issue I wanted to speak on was the town meeting bylaw issue, the recording. I sent everybody on the board a sample bylaw from another community, and it lists, if anybody read it, it lists what committees by name. It doesn't say every committee, every subcommittee, every time two people meet, they have to record it, and so on and so on. It's all very specific. And so it takes a policy that the board has, which is legally unenforceable, and makes it into an actual real requirement. And it can be tailored to just the regulatory boards, or it can be whatever we want it to be. We could limit it only to the select board. But the point is, it does make sense, since it's already been written and already available to be copied. It does make sense to kind of codify our position in a way that is binding. So if some separately elected committee decides, the hell with it, we're going to do what we want, we could actually enforce it. Oh, and just one other comment about the government study committee. Yeah, it's good to have a government study committee every 5 years or so, but the last one actually continued on and on and on. And I think they were still active like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So I don't think that there's a 5-year gap there yet. So this may be a little premature to have a government study committee, particularly if we're going to do a town clerk change in structure. I would think the two would collide with each other, and people would say, well, let's not do the town clerk thing because we got this government study committee. Let's send it to the government study committee for study and have them come back 2 or 3 years later. I think we should defer on the government study committee. Let's go forward with the town clerk thing. Get that piece done, then do the government study committee. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Paul. I'll just make a few thoughts of my own here. is I'm pretty much in line with what Steven said. I support most of these. I've had conversation with most of these. The public meeting bylaw recording, I'm starting to waver on. I worry about unintended consequences. You know, we had two boards which might have some problems with some change of chairs and resolve themselves. And so I don't know if there's some way for us to, those seem to kind of work out, you know what I mean? So maybe it's just worth more discussion on that. What's the other one I was gonna chime in on? Special purpose stabilization. Yeah, definitely talk about that. And that one's, you know, something I've been kind of working on. Everything else seems straightforward. I do have a comment on the MBTA 3A zoning. I've been following it as well. I'm sure not as closely as Paul with that, but I've been following it a little bit as well. From my understanding, though, if Milton loses, the deadline doesn't change, and I think where Sherman's up to its last minute thing here. I think we have to approve it at this town meeting, or we'll miss a deadline. Now, if Milton wins, then maybe it's moot. But I don't think we should stop the planning board's meeting on it. They talk about it frequently, and they're drafting something, and it's going to be sponsored by them. Being a zoning article. I don't think we should have them stop working on it. I don't think we should not be prepared to submit something in the spring. Maybe if Milton wins, we want to reassess what we're doing and look at it again. I'm not sure. Maybe there's just some reason to move forward, but I would encourage the planning board not to stop their work on it. On that, I can kind of see, I probably support most of these, and maybe something falls off, you know, as they start to evolve. But I would like to at least to direct the town administrator to, you know, advance these, maybe not the top two, but you know, give some assistance or advance the others. And again, with maybe a second look at the public meeting bylaw recording. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts from anyone else on the board?
I guess one question about the public meeting bylaw thing is, you know, in the towns, Paul, where there is a bylaw, so what is the what is the penalty for a board that does not abide by it?
Well, I sent it around for you all to see it. Removal from office, fines, penalties.
I mean, what does that mean, fines? Like, I'm just gonna pull a theoretical example. Let's say that the ZBA doesn't record their meeting and post it. Are we going to fine the ZBA? Are we going to fine the individual members privately, or is it one? Are we fining them, taking money out of their budget? What does that mean?
There's a choice of remedies. It doesn't mean you have to do any of them. You could do none. Or you could ask town council to go find a judge and have the judge order it. And if they don't obey the judge, then they may be in contempt of court, and literally they might end up being locked up until they agree to do it. But without we can put nothing, or we could put whatever you want into a bylaw. But right now, there's no teeth to what we are saying. For a board like the ZBA, we appoint them, and we can remove them. And we could put in such a bylaw that if the ZBA refuses to record, or the chair refuses to record, or whatever, we could remove that person. At least gives you some leverage to have that discussion.
Well, as much as I think jailing people will help our volunteerism, I do, well, it is a bed and 3 meals, right? Have you seen, Paul, at communities you work with, I'm concerned about unintended consequences? Now, I can't think of any, but sometimes that's the whole point of unintended consequences. Something happens, you know, you put in these kind of strict rules, and with no kind of like wiggle room out of it. Have you seen, you know, I'm talking about something going wrong, a punishment where something shouldn't have happened, someone weaponizing this or something like that? Have you seen what I call like the unintended consequences?
Yes, but it was fixed. Well, the unintended consequence was I don't want executive sessions recorded. When we have a discussion in executive session about pending litigation or whatever else, the last thing I want is for the opposing side to file a motion to compel us to turn over the tape recording because they think there's some admission in that tape recording. So I don't want executive sessions recorded. So we're trying to fix that glitch. So it's one thing to say all meetings need to be recorded. No, not all meetings need to be recorded.
It has to be well thought out. I get that. That's why I'm a
Yeah.
little 50-50. Maybe it's something appropriate for like the 26th town meeting, and maybe we can vet it. I don't know. Because again, we had some situations where we felt we needed it, and a situation resolved. So maybe it's just because it resolved. Maybe in 6 months we'll have another situation where we think we need this. You know what I mean? So that's I'm still 50-50. I mean, sold either way. Marion, what are your thoughts?
Right. Jeremy and I kind of put this policy together, and I looked around at various towns, asked people how do they do it. Most towns don't have any policy. They're still figuring it out, and they asked us, well, tell us how you do it, and then maybe we'll do the same thing. But I think the policy that we wrote was a reasonably good policy, and it simply could become a bylaw. There could be a little more formality in that policy. But I don't think we need to put teeth in it, because just having a bylaw that says, this shall be done this way, is teeth in itself, I think. We have a lot lot that don't have teeth. We don't have jail time for, say, the planning board, whatever. So I think it, but I do like the idea of codifying it a little more clearly for the meetings that are really crucial to have recorded, and we know who those are. It's just a small handful, Board of Health, the same ones that we named in the policy. So I do like the idea of making it a bylaw, but it needn't have big teeth. Could I make some other comments on these other things?
Well, the one thing.
Sure. The one thing I'd like to add is that
my comments on that specific one, do you want to go and come back, or?
Yeah, man, do you mind if I let Jeff speak since we're talking about one subject matter? It flows a bit better.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay,
Just
go ahead.
because I'm concerned. I'm not sure I'd use the unintended consequences rule here, but maybe we need to be more specific and say regulatory boards or something. In other words,
That's what we did say in the policy,
is it okay?
and we named them.
Because what if people just have handwritten, minutes that are typed up or whatever? Does that count? We may not always have Zoom meetings. We may have an in-person meeting, and we don't have but one room that has recording capability. So are we saying that in those regulatory bodies that they have to have a televised meeting? Because that's the only way unless, I guess, is there a situation where you might have just audio recording?
Well, like we're all on Zoom.
I understand, but we might not always be all on Zoom, or,
Don't
I just think as long as there's minutes, you've recorded what happened. I mean, we went 100 years with no Zoom. You recorded the discussion and the factual decisions and who voted which way. I don't know. I think might be erring on the side of over-regulation, but that's all I had to say.
Well, I want to stay on that same subject just for a minute and argue the other side, just for sake of argument, but not just sake of argument. I think realistically, people like to be able to go back and hear what was said. And if you hear what was said and then read the minutes just don't do it for you. I mean, if you really want to know the sense of the discussion, you really need to see it. And I think it is important for the major regulatory boards, only the major regulatory boards, Board of Health, Concom, ZBA, and us, basically, and
planning board.
Yeah, there's 5. where people really appreciate being able to listen to the meeting after it happened when they couldn't be there, or to listen to it on Zoom, or to go back to it and say, who actually said that? So, you know, I think our policy as it stands seems to be working pretty well. It's not an emergency situation here, but I would be in favor of making it a little more codified so people can count on having meetings that they want to hear recorded.
Just, can I add
So
one thing?
let me
to
throw
this?
Okay, but I'm going to kind of wrap it up. Listen to what I said and say, are we confident enough they want Jeremy to start working on an outline for this and get something for us and before we kind of kill it? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Is there something maybe, is there enough consensus on the board on this one item to have him advance it to some level?
Yeah, and we can discuss it again.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I thought. I don't want to beat this one up too much. I think we all agree this might be the polarizing one. The one doesn't advance. Now, Jeremy, I'm going to ask you something. What are your thoughts on the workload to advance a fair? There's a fair amount of work we have here. Just what's your thought on just general workload and how we're going to structure it? Like, come before us with kind of like before we actually make these into actual bylaw revisions, into outlines about them or something. Just let's discuss that.
I think that's a good approach, Eric, in that, you know, I sense that some of these you needed some more information on before going too deep into it. So we would provide some more summary information and then kind of get your temperature before going further. Yeah, certainly, you know,
Okay.
there's a lot of stuff on our plates, but you know, talking about it now will allow us to plan for the coming months to get this before you.
And the hardest ones are actually being put together by the planning board.
Yeah.
And we can request input at the planning board whenever we feel it's appropriate.
Yeah, so I mean, they've been meeting at least I see it in their agendas. I'm only gone to a couple meetings in the last couple months, I have to admit, but I see it in their agendas quite a bit. So it's definitely a part of the discussion. They had a whole workshop about the 3A zoning. They did a townwide survey, and so they've done a lot of effort into that. They really have. Heidi and the whole board there. All right, let's do it. Let's kind of break this up in little chunks and let's take a look, see what survives as they obviously evolve them. I think it is an ambitious list here, so I applaud Jeremy for taking a bite out of this. So let's see how far we go.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no more than that, I know we have the select board goals, which I kind of blew off last time, and I had a goal of my own to really delve into it, but I just got so distracted with actually other Sherborn stuff has been kind of grabbing my attention. But do people want to discuss the goals as given to background material? I don't want to blow it off more than twice, to be honest with you. It's something that is important, but just there's always something urgent that's on my plate at that moment. So I've decided I don't know if I can give it the behind the scenes time with Jeremy like I want, but if someone has any thoughts or wants to discuss it, let's do so now.
I think it would be good to at least start on it. Jeremy has several pages. We might take certain categories of certain pages and take a look at them and get it started. I think the whole thing is too much to do in one night. We're not going to find the time for that. So let's break it up a little bit.
Do you want to go through them on the screen? What we have here?
Can you share the first page, Jeremy?
Sure.
Like Marion said, decide how we kind of want to break this up. If we're going to give a fast overview or just kind of do a few at a time, I'm not sure.
Can I ask one thing? Just what's the difference between the yellow highlight and the green highlight?
Yeah, so the green highlight were items that Marion recently added.
Okay,
The yellow highlights were things I thought you might think of as more of a priority than others.
got it.
Yeah, this particular green highlight is really for Jeremy. I don't think it's something that we have to discuss as a select board goal. So you can disregard that one, I believe.
And I guess further describe it, crossed out once are completed, correct? I guess it's a little self-explanatory there.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, went through from the prior list that was created and went through and struck out ones that I believe were completed and noted that as well. And also added for the ones that are not crossed out but are carryovers, noted ones that are in process, that are actively being carried forward.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I guess I'll be interested in just people's thoughts. We kind of read through this, look at it. There's a lot here, so it's hard to say like, oh, this other thing, but I know the one which I think I'm always, strategizing is one of the ones that was kind of in the town meeting about the capital stabilization fund is like, strategize ways for capital bonding. Or with the
So-
same thing we talked about.
So I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I think this is way too much. In other words, I usually get involved in this in other communities when we talk about setting goals for a town manager or for a town administrator. And once you get beyond like a half dozen to a dozen goals, usually the town manager starts yelling, wait a second. This is more than I can accomplish in the year that's up ahead. And what you've got here is a 30-year plan. There's simply too much on here. And if you try to filter it the way I tried to do, which was to focus only on the yellow, which is what's called the priority goals, there's still too many. This would kill our town administrator. I mean, I don't want to have to be contributing to a funeral expense.
It's not in his contract.
But literally this.
A lot of these are in process, so those are things that Jeremy is already working on, even as we speak.
And item E, we just approved $27,000 to have somebody else do.
Just gonna say
Exactly.
that. Okay. Mhm.
But really, I think this needs to be, items need to be crossed out and aim for, let's say, a list of 10, of 20, let's say 20, and then have a meeting in which we pick amongst the 20 to bring it down to 10, something like that, rather than, I didn't count all of these, but it looks like 100, maybe 150 different items here that just go on and on and on.
Well, a lot of these are not select board functions exactly. They're really, there are a lot of town administrator things here that Jeremy is actually in the process of doing. Of course, he always has our support and will tell us what he's doing, but maybe we could sort out a little bit things that the select board in particular should be paying special attention to or working on. Does that make sense, Jeremy?
Sure. Yeah, I'm just want to help you put together your goals and then translate those to mine to assist you. So I'm open to any ideas. Yeah, I agree with Paul. I mean, we need to make a list that's manageable and doable for all of us. So yeah, this is a brain dump of many things.
Sure.
Right. I mean, I think to some degree, like a lot of these are sort of, they're not like new or extrinsic goals. They are things that would just fall under job duties of a town administrator. But I think it is reflected in the fact that I think more than half of these things are ongoing or in process already, right? But I think it's what I sense is that Jeremy is asking if we want to reprioritize different things on the list.
Mm.
Not it's like if we're not going to drop update local comprehensive emergency management plan. We're not going to drop it off the list. Like, stop working on that, please. We don't need that. It's like, no, of course, like you're going to do that. But it's not like we're going to say, oh, let's make that your number one priority in this category, you know. So to me, that's what I am getting out of this list. You know, and I don't know that I have anything to change about how it's been prioritized in terms of the ones that are in yellow are higher priorities right now. I'm like that all seems pretty accurate.
You gave me a good idea to kind of structure this real quick. Let me do this. I'm gonna go on the items that are not in yellow, but are also actually scroll back. Don't go any further. Scroll back to where. Let's just do community governance. There's like what 7 or 8 of these different subject matters. Let's just start with community governance. I'm just gonna go off the ones that don't say in progress, that look like maybe that aren't gonna be, that are to be started, that aren't kind of on something ongoing anyway. The town administrator to do. I think there's only like 4 of them on this page. Whatever.
Well, can I
Reconvene.
just make a comment on what you just said?
Yep.
Some of these aren't really select board goals, and some of these aren't really town administrator goals. They're he's identified these as really community goals in many ways. And it may help if we figure out who's actually doing, or do we expect to do things. Like town clerk succession planning in process. Is that something that I'm expected to do? Is that something
Yes.
the board is expected to do? Or is that something that Jeremy's expected to do? Or is that something that the town clerk is working on? By including all of these things in here, and again, I just picked the first item. Who's working on them? By not identifying it,
Well,
there's an old expression about many hands make light work. So if
Let
you
me do this. Let me do this. Go back to the structure one. There's 5 items on this page, which are not ongoing or not in highlights. 5 items. I just want to name them off and see if the select board supports it rather than even beating it up. Even knowing who does it. Does the select board have an interest in this certain item that's not even started yet? That seems like a start to have a discussion here. And then we can
yeah.
talk about who is supposed to do it, blah, 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 blah. Do you know what I mean? And that there.
Yeah. And I would even say to some degree, I don't care who does it, right? I mean, I think this is a list that Jeremy has created of things that he is keeping an eye on, and I leave it to his discretion what things are appropriate to delegate to somebody else to do. But it is his job to just make sure if we feel like this is a thing that needs to get done, he will try to ensure that it gets done by whoever is the appropriate person, and he might delegate that authority, right? So I don't think that we need to tell Jeremy who should be doing what. Simply, item C, reconvene government study task force. All right, well, we've already been having a discussion. Is that something that we want to do? And I mean, it's already pretty obvious that who's going to do that? Well, it's the town moderator, and it's an active town meeting that would make it happen. So it would, you know, I think the steps he would already know are in place to make it happen. We just need to tell him, oh yeah, that seems like something that's important, or no, that's something that we should put off till 2026, you know? So I don't think we need to get into that granular micromanaging aspect of it, right? It's kind of higher level. Oh yeah, that seems like a good goal, or no, maybe not this one so much, you know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking at. The kind of like general consensus on certain items, you know, how much it stays on the town administrator's radar. But that's a good one example, because that wouldn't fall under us. What are people's thoughts on reconvene government study task force? I think it's like you just said, where we've discussed it, whatever. I don't think the select board wants to stop it. Do I have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that it's a high priority. Again, I think, you know, like what Paul said, like we should focus on other things, and after those are done, then get governance task force going. So if that's something that gets pushed off to 2026, 2027, like that doesn't bother me. I think that the idea of a recurring governance task force that gets together every 5 to 7 years to look at things, I think is a good idea. And I honestly hadn't realized it's been so long since Governance Task Force 2 happened, and it's like, oh, yeah, I guess we should look at getting that done. But is that a priority for this coming year? I would say no, probably not.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Especially since
I would
Paul
say
indicated it
it's
might be more than 5 years.
I would agree. It's a good thing, but lower priority.
Absolutely. Rationalize review of charter of all boards and committees. This is the one that actually grabbed me a little bit.
That seems like a big one.
I know.
That's a job right there.
Is that a need? Is that a felt need right now? Do we not, do we sense lack of clarity or overlap or whatever in the function of our boards and committees?
Well, we do with the Public Safety and Traffic Committee,
Yeah.
Right, that's the
but,
exception.
but we wouldn't want to do that for the Board of Health, for example. Do we want to do it for the planning board? Do we want to tell these boards and committees, you know, hey, you're doing too much. We want you to do less, or we want you to do more? It just by saying all boards and committees, it's too unfocused.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I agree. And the specific question of public safety and traffic safety will come up later. So, yeah.
Plus, this is a huge job. It just this one goal. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
that's right.
it's a scary thing that I agree with Paul completely, but I think we got to pare this list down.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing, Jeff. We're paring it down.
Yeah, but it's still way too many things. Way too many.
Well, I think it is tons of things, but I appreciate that Jeremy's just thrown it all out there. And we can pick out of this list things that we want to put in a priority. It's something to think and talk more about. An active list, put it that way.
Okay. And I agree. That's why I'm trying to give some structure to this, and that's why I'm kind of going through this. So at least he hears our feedback. And develop performance metrics for town services. This is something I like in my day job. I'm not sure how much it translates to a small community like Sherborn. But this is something which I've found useful again in my day job. But I'll be interested in other people's thoughts.
Not sure exactly what that would look like. Maybe you can explain.
Yeah, can you give like a small focused example of what that would look like?
Like my department reports on a number of plans reviewed, things like that, number of permits issued, inspection reports done, things like that. On a broader scale, public works like miles of pipe replaced, lined,
That's
stuff
what
like
we
that.
need, miles of pipe.
Number of traffic signals, things like that. So I mean, obviously, the framing department public works is very, very large, and you can have these metrics, but they are interesting to show, like, where different efforts have gone over the years, how things have changed and evolved, where you can find efficiencies. I report on them, something that I do. Sherborn's a smaller town.
I mean, Sherborn is small enough that we kind of know exactly what is being done pretty much by everybody.
Yeah.
That is, I can see how it would be essential in a town like Framingham or even Natick to keep track of, large teams doing important, say, infrastructure maintenance. But here, well, I don't think it's high priority.
Okay. Are there other metrics I'm not thinking of?
The
More
only thing on the
financial.
metrics, though, is it sort of goes with budgeting. In other words,
Yeah.
you budget for things that you want to improve, and the metrics are how you demonstrate that you improve them. You know what I mean? They go hand in hand with the annual budgeting process, I think.
Well, I would like it to not fall off the list if you want to change this priority.
Yeah.
It's something where, like Jeff indicated, I can't even think of, offhand, like metrics of the departments and stuff like that. I just know what I kind of deal with, but it's something which I'd like it maybe not to fall off the list, particularly as we're looking for efficiencies.
I agree. We may find a situation in which we would like to have some metrics.
Yeah, maybe he can come up with some for the various departments and again, inspections or whatever. Implement public works support for cemetery commission. This is something I would like to stay on. I've been talking to Jeremy. I think that in general some support about this. What are other people's thoughts? Does anyone know any background to this?
I don't. I'd like to hear more. Sounds like something reasonable to support. Is it a current need Jeremy, is your sense that something like this is needed?
Yes, in discussions with the Cemetery Commission and helping them with some recent and ongoing issues, yeah, it's something that we should be considering, in that it's one of the many boards and that are really run by volunteers with very little support, and not really sustainable in the long term. And in the near future, we'll have, the town auditor, will have the audit presented to you. They did do a special audit, this year, the Cemetery Commission, and came up with some suggestions as well that help feed into this goal.
So that's one to keep on the list.
I will say the list here of goals, some of these are carryovers from goals that were presented to me, when I was hired a couple of years ago. So some of these are ones that maybe predate all of us or predate many of us, but for the sake of continuity, I've kept them on here. And just looking for your help to pare this down and to get a sense of your priorities to focus.
Good, it's good.
Let's look at the next page real quick. Let's do a quick review of it and see how far we get. We're not gonna get through all these, but I just want to kind of take a quick look. There's only one in here that does not say ongoing, by the way. And it's one I think you could check off the box like in a day. But does anyone have any thoughts just looking at this right now and looking through it? Even those ongoing are highlighted.
Well, Q and R are both ongoing and important.
Yep. That's a fast read, by the way. I was down to like N when you.
I start from the end.
Only P is not ongoing, but I think that's something for that is important, and it's a defined metric that can be accomplished.
But
a lot of these are going to be ongoing
now
for
it can actually be noted as ongoing. We did do some outreach at the Sherborn.
Okay. Is there anything that people want to marginalize? Anything that people don't think is that important? Maybe take off the list.
What is M? Like, what are we talking about there? Like, where are the old Council on Aging offices? And
It's in the basement of Town Hall. It's being used more as storage now. It's potential office space or other touchdown space.
Right, the basement offices are pretty cramped and kind of cramped by a lot of storage going on in the same space. I know that Sean has done his best to make that a workable space. But
to some of the old Council on Aging offices, that's the space underneath where my office is.
Oh.
Where there's a mechanical room there. And to some degree, what we end up doing for the water treatment may impact that space. If we need a little more space, we might have to eat into that space a little bit. Hopefully not, but it is a vacant space that's available for use, beyond just the random storage that's going on there now.
Yeah.
One thing that's I think kind of lacking in that basement land use basic space is there's no place to take a client or whatever into a private room to talk. It's all very public. It's all very open. And I wonder if there's an option for a little conference room where, a planning board, the planner could take a particular plan that a developer wants to discuss and just have an open discussion without all the other boards, sitting and listening to it. I mean, there are times when you need some privacy. Does that make sense, Jeremy?
Good
It
point.
was originally
Yeah.
designed that way, Mary, and they've converted it. That back room was supposed to be the meeting space.
Yes, that's right.
You know, the far back room is the file storage room. And then that next room was supposed to be the space with the meeting space. Because it's not just, you know, it could be contractors or, you know, 4 or 5 people. And then the outer room, but they ended up making it, I think, Jessica's office back there, or someone's office. So we
Yeah, so we're,
followed the original design.
yeah, so Jeff, we're actually, the latest on the office layout down on that side of the basement is that it's likely that that space is going to be turned back into more of a swing space, more of a conference room space.
Yeah, okay.
For folks to use, and that all the folks would be up front in some layout. So
Right,
we're
okay.
heading back towards that original thought, Jeff.
All right. Any other thoughts? Just let me see here. If you look at what's crossed out, I think a lot is crossed out, and I think a lot is ongoing and probably completable, really, to some degree.
Yeah. Broaden and diversify volunteer base for boards
I
and
know.
committees seems one of those too large and nebulous and broad to actually tackle. But I mean, it's like that's a great goal, but like, what are you gonna do?
I thought the same thing. Okay, let's just go to the next one, and maybe that's the last one. Because some people want to keep pressing on.
On the, I think it's the next page, item R, improved town employee accrual tracking. What are they accruing that we're gonna be tracking?
I think it's vacation and sick leave, isn't it?
Right.
I think from what I understand, it's a little not quite. It's done a little different for each department. Jeremy can speak to one I can, but I think that is important to do in any kind of employee base. And there've been issues with, like I said, with sick leave and vacation.
So I think you should add those words then, sick leave and vacation. So it's not pensions, it's not OPEB, it's not, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, make it clarify. I'm not probably the most versed on it either.
Yeah, the way that we currently track in the payroll office for sick and vacation approvals is spreadsheets, and it is based on the personnel administration plan that is a little overly complex when it comes to vacation accrual. It could be improved and become a little bit more accurate. Currently, on our pay stubs that we get do not have the current accruals. To find out what you have, available for sick or vacation requires inquiring to the payroll administrator. It's not readily available in current.
So that would be a good thing. Oh, on this page, T is something that I inserted, and at our last meeting, Dan Sitchell commented that they were working earlier with the Dover Sherborn regional schools budget, but the idea to collaborate with Dover officials as they work with the schools was just something that I sort of, without knowing exactly how it works, I threw in there because of comments made in the process over the last couple of years, that the regional school budget was drawn up in a way that we had to react to, but weren't involved in early enough. And I think we could have more communication with Dover on that score. But maybe someone who's worked with the school committee with regional schools should comment on that. Because I have not. Jeff, are you still here?
Still
Dan is
here.
here.
What my daughter's here, so I'm talking to her a little bit. They meet with Dover Warrant though. This is, to me, is an advisory goal, not a select board goal, but we're
Right.
not
It
deciding.
is.
And Stephen can reinforce this, that they meet every year, sometimes a couple times, with, they call it Dover Warrant. That's their version of advisory. And so it's not just about the school budget. For example, when we were looking at OPEBs or some other things that were more than school related, we would meet with Dover Warren and talk about it. So
Okay, well, that's good. Maybe it's already
view it
happened.
as a select board goal, but if we want to have goals here and someone else is implementing them, that's okay. But they do it pretty regularly as part of the advisory process.
Yeah, as Dan said, oh, and here's Dan, he can repeat what he said last time.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
informed me because my comment was from a very non-informed position. I take responsibility for that.
Yeah, and I'm a little arrogant, but we're way stronger than Dover Warren in my view. Stephen can weigh in on that, but they seem to have more turnover and a little bit less focused than advisory, I felt.
I'd like to recognize Dan.
Thanks, Eric. I was just gonna briefly say that just in terms of process, that on the regional school and the Pine Hill school budget, advisory liaisons will meet with Don Fattore, right, the business administrator, in January to kind of do an early look at the budget. And then in February, we will have a joint meeting with all of us, Dover Warrant, and the schools, and sort of have a joint conversation. That earlier January conversation, in a way, is the more valuable one, because that latter meeting gets so big that it's more people doing set speeches rather than really digging into numbers. I've worked pretty hard to collaborate with Dover and to connect with them. They've had a fair bit of turnover, I think, on the warrant committee. They have, I think, a procedure of electing a new chair every year. And so every year there's kind of a rookie chair, which takes a while for that person to get going. So on the specifics that you raised, Marion, about the concerns about what happened last year in the budget process, advisory and capital budget drafted a letter that we've both approved text of and are ready to send, and are trying to get Dover, Warrant, and capital budget to agree to sign on. But I think they're having some process issues just because they're trying to get going and they're struggling with a number of things. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Dan. I put this out simply because I didn't know. So now I know. It's great. It's good.
All right.
You could say
and
I'm going for that.
anything else on this page on economic stability? I mean, the only one that I want to add, like I talked about before, is the strategizing capital within the 2.5 bounds. So I'd like to actually add that and call it in process.
I would agree.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on this page? And what are people's thoughts about moving on to the next page? I mean, like, so if you want to cut this up, it's fine. It is, I don't say only 9 o'clock, but it's 9 o'clock, and pretty much all we have left is a consent agenda and the reports. Do people want to keep on going to the next page here?
No,
Anyone disagree?
I think we can wait for the next meeting.
Keep in mind, not all meetings are light. That's my only reason I might want to push a little bit. But if you're fine with it, that's nice. But we got one of those
How many
multitude
more
meetings.
pages? How many more pages of this are there?
There's a bunch. It's got to be like at least 1, 2, 3,
Or
4.
I'm good with everything on the remaining pages. Had no questions. So
I bet you everyone threw up. You'd speak up somewhere, but okay. We went through them. All right. Let's do that. Let's let me look. Economic stability. Is there anything else? As I always say, email Jeremy one-on-one with these. It looks like Marion's definitely the green highlights. You look at land use and housing, it's all green. Let me put that together. All right, I'll give some more thought as well. Have people what do you call it? Email Jeremy one-on-one. I would like to see it before us again, and maybe just a little bit cleaned up version we have. Maybe just, if we're all fine with the ones that are crossed out, boom, gone. Let's see a cleaned up version of it. And that might help us think about it a bit better as well. I'll put mine aside in regard to look at it. All right, so all that being said, and next is the consent agenda.
Move
Any question,
approval.
comments, motions, move approval. Do I have a second?
Second,
All right, all in favor, Jeff,
right,
Stephen,
Aye.
Marianne,
I,
and Paul.
Aye.
I am I as well. Very good. And after that, select board updates.
So I have one.
Yep.
So yesterday I got involved in a pitched battle at the MMA over the continuation of remote and virtual meetings.
Hmm.
Right now, the current legal framework expires in March of next year. And we have bills pending to extend it. There's some sentiment, particularly from the mayor of Waltham, that it should only be extended with restrictions that provide limited reasons for having virtual meetings, because she felt we should be going back to in-person meetings, and made a big case about how that's been the tradition for hundreds of years, and it provides an opportunity for voters to talk to people on boards and committees before meetings start and after meetings are over. There's more socialization and all that kind of stuff. And I ended up being the spokesman for the opposite view, that virtual meetings are the wave of the future, and that there should not be any restrictions on it. It should be left up to each board and committee whether they want to have virtual or in person or hybrid. And trying to put standards on the extension was not a good idea. And amongst the things I cited was the current atmosphere created by the SJC decision that says that civility can't be required or enforced by government agencies on public input. And I've got a couple of tape recordings that I played that are horrendous, with private citizens attacking government officials in ways that are basically all full out of words for 2 or 3 minutes, and how there's really no effective way of responding, or that government officials have been asking me, is there any restriction on government officials giving back the same lack of civility to these people who are being uncivil? And there is no legal prohibition of, let's say, select board members from being uncivil to a voter who's being uncivil to them. So what you have is a dumbing down of things, which, if done in person, leads to having to call the police, to have people escorted out of meetings, and then the people who are escorted out of meetings file assault and battery charges, all this kind of stuff. Whereas virtual meetings provide for a much more orderly way, and that the chair is able to turn off somebody's microphone when there's hate speech and blah, 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 all these kind of benefits. And we're going to be voting on this in 2 weeks as to how we want to see this continued. There's 20 votes. I'm hoping that the current system prevails and we can get an extension. But I just want to give you a heads up that it's not certain that that'll happen.
So I'll ask real quick and I'll recognize Jeff. What was your vibe? What was the dialogue going back and forth? How did you sense the people there were biased, or how were they inclined to go?
Well, it's almost an age thing. That is, the older people liked going back to in-person meetings. And the younger people are more used to computers. I mean, one of the things they said was, older people don't have computers, so they need to meet in person. But most of my towns have public libraries, and the public libraries let you borrow a computer like they were a book. You can get a computer at the library and all set up to communicate. So even if you don't own a computer, you certainly can get access to it. But and we went down all these rabbit holes, and I did not change the mind of that mayor, and she did not change my mind. And it just finally the chair said, "Stop. We've all heard enough. We'll think about it and we'll vote on it later." There's a fair number of people who want to go back to in-person meetings, but to require to go back to in-person meetings rather than leaving it up to boards and committees. I mean, if we wanted to have an in-person meeting right now, we can have an in-person meeting. And if we want to have a virtual meeting, we can have a virtual meeting. They want to restrict it. These people want to say you can't have these virtual meetings. We need to essentially move back to personal meetings. So I don't know where that's going to go.
All right, Jeff. Okay.
Yeah, I think that another point, I mean, I agree with everything you said, Paul. And maybe even not individual boards could decide, but maybe a town could decide, Waltham could decide that they as a town want to do something. But, I'm the one that got Charlie Williams to participate in all our Boy Scout meetings on Zoom. Okay. So if I could get Charlie Williams to do it, I can get anyone to do it. There's two efficiency things. One is, particularly for seniors, who wants to drive all the way into town hall and sit there in a hard folding chair when you could be at home and attend a meeting at your leisure in your comfortable environment? So I think it actually helps seniors. It helps everyone, but it helps seniors that they don't have to schlep into town hall to attend a meeting. But the other efficiency thing is it very greatly helps the presenters, because let's say that you're number 6 on the agenda. Now you have to go sit in town hall for, an hour and 45 minutes while we go through the select board goals until your item comes up. Whereas if you just dial in on Zoom and you can have your camera off and you can contribute on your one topic when it comes up, but you didn't have to waste 2 hours sitting in a chair in town hall. So there's a huge factor of efficiency, which they also aren't considering. You do miss some of the interpersonal benefits of being in person, but I guess I would maybe use the word hybrid. You could have a hybrid meeting where some people can be in person and some people can be virtual, and not have it be all 100% in person would be my suggestion. But I agreed with what you said, so keep pushing.
Well, we have
there's no doubt attendance is better on a hybrid meeting. There's absolutely, I don't think anyone can doubt that whatsoever, for the exact reason that you said there. Maybe a hybrid is ideal, but who is the Taylor? Who's the guy who showed up to someone who only had him in our meeting?
Elliot
Taylor. We only had him in our meeting, and now rest his soul would have nobody in front of us if we had just live meetings.
He was a good person, though.
Yeah. Marianne, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say exactly what Jeff said. We could ask the people here tonight how many of you would be here if we had to be in town hall, and I think probably very few or none. Also, there's the whole recording aspect. Remote meetings are always recorded. Hybrid meetings can be recorded easily. In-person meetings, it's a bigger deal to get them recorded. So anyway, I think we all agree, but Paul, how many of these 20 do you feel were on the side of the mayor of Waltham? I think Jeff already kind of asked this, but what's your sense?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, keep us posted.
Tough read. I could definitely get that.
The one thing I could send you all a tape that's a sample of the kind of vitriol that the SJC has caused to be released on government bodies. And when you listen to that tape, you think, do you want to face that person who's like 5 feet away from you? And they're saying all these things. And right now, the common advice from virtually all town councils are to say nothing and to thank you for your comments after you've just been accused of being a rapist and a murderer and all these things. It's really changed the whole flavor of government. Whereas if you're remote, at least you feel a little more protected.
Well, you do not send it to me. I'm aware of these recordings and they are terrible. And yeah, I'm aware where the SJC decision that as well. It was it is what it is. I don't think, because I am a strong believer of freedom of speech. But obviously at some point, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, or you can't say something threatening to certain people. So either way, don't forward it. And I do get your point there. I will say though that we've had, I'm gonna say almost no problem with that in Sherborn. What, may it happen someday? Yeah, it may. It may happen someday. In this town so far, I think, yeah, there've been some heated times, and there've been some times such. There was one time, I mean, on the planning board, we actually asked an officer to at least show up to the meeting, expecting trouble, or none occurred. And that's just my thoughts. I won't make much more of it. All right, any other select board reports? Okay, how about town administrator updates?
Thanks, Eric. I'll try to be brief. Update on the Sherborn History Center. We're negotiating with a design firm. We have the ad hoc committee. We selected our ideal candidate, and we're negotiating terms. Right now, their fee is beyond what we have appropriated, so we're working to get that pared down to what we can afford. So I'm not going to announce the name of the firm yet because we haven't successfully negotiated a contract. Hopefully, we hopefully will come to terms soon. Just wanted to announce publicly about the grant that we've received, pending final approval from Mass DEP for PFAS water treatment of the town campus water supply. That's a $100,000 grant towards the construction of those treatment improvements. The designer, we have entered a contract with the designer based on the appropriation from last town meeting. So the design work will be underway, and things are lining up such that we'll have treatment in place for the town campus water supply, serving town hall, police department, the library, the community center, in place and functioning by this summer. So I think that's great news. And also $100,000 taken off of the town's capital program. We did just hear today that we got the results from October's test for PFAS for the town campus wells. Came in under 20 parts per trillion, so it's below the limit set by the state. That's good news. Just barely below 19.4. But of all things, the way the state's regulations work, now that we're below the limit, we have to test more often. So it's going to cost us more in sampling than when we were over. So just an oddity in the way they regulate PFAS.
Well, but the US regulation is 4 or whatever it is, right? 5 or something. So.
Right. So that should go into effect next year. So next year we'll be subject to the federal requirements, which we'll be designing for and whatever we implement, which we can also trigger some of our other public water supplies to need treatment.
Yeah, I agree. But that's why I see it's sort of moot in that, the federal is supporter of the state.
It's impending. That should be implemented next year. A couple personnel updates. Our veteran services officer. So Diana Hoke, who's diligently served as our VSO for years and has done a great job and would love to continue doing it, unfortunately is not able, she doesn't qualify to take the required training, because of new federal requirements for through the VA to take the training to become a certified, officer to provide, benefit advice for veterans. So her certification she'll cease to have it at the end of this calendar year. So we've been exploring other options. One of which was, what Dover does, Dover shares, or the Natix VSO offers help to Dover for a flat fee. So we approached Natick to see if we could enter into the same sort of agreement. Well, it turns out that agreement between their VSO and the town of Dover was not officially on the books, and Natick was not aware of it in their town administration. So, and it's not currently compliant with the current standards of the Executive Office of Veterans Affairs here in the Commonwealth. The reason Diana doesn't qualify, she doesn't work 1,000 hours per year as a VSO. And, we don't have nearly that amount of need in the community. She literally fielded calls from 4 people last year, 2 of which qualified for benefits. So we're still actively working with Natick to see if we can come to some arrangement. It's not going to be like Dover's was, where they paid $1,000 stipend to the Natick's VSO. It's going to be something different, possibly a veterans district. That's a fairly big endeavor. We're hopeful that we can work something less than that and just have a simple agreement with Natick to help provide those services short of forming a full district. And I have also reached out to some other established districts to see if there's any opportunity. If we have to do something, could we join an established district like the Metro West District, or with Medfield and Walpole together? In any event, this is something that we'll need to figure out and has potential budget impacts. But wanted to fill you on the latest there.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Is it possible? I would like to see us maybe bifurcate the job, because if you think of it, there is this sort of official Veterans Affairs responsibilities, but they also, in our small town, lead the Memorial Day Parade. They lead the Veterans Celebration on November 11th in Town Hall. So I'm wondering if there's I don't know what you would call it, but a sort of a position which is more focused on those sort of semi-social public events as opposed to the regulatory requirements of being a veterans agent. Because while it would be good to outsource some of the regulatory requirements to a regional center, I really like having, she's also a veteran, as was Doug Brody, lead some of those events in town, such as Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And I don't want to lose that sort of inclusion of veterans at the community level. Do you know what I'm saying?
Certainly, Diana wants to continue doing that, that volunteering to help with all those activities. And actually, Diane in your office does a lot of work to support those events as well.
Yeah.
So, all of that can certainly stay. Those activities are not subject to the rules to be a certified VSO. So all of those things could still be done the way that you've always done them, with all that inclusion.
But we might need
They're
her
still obligated to have a certified VSO serving public. So that's the challenge.
We need to have a role for her to do those things. In other words, even if it's volunteer, that she's got some, title or imprimatur of leading the veterans events, I guess, whatever you want to call it.
Yep. Makes sense.
All right. Anything else on that item?
No, staff training, just to follow up on that there, I've sent you the details of what we've done over the last 2 months, doing some staff training, teamwork, customer service training. Plan to follow up with some more interactive, hands-on team building activities in the future to continue on with that sort of training for staff. And just the last thing I wanted to point out, just as a reminder about the public information meeting next Wednesday, October 23rd. Mike Giamo, town moderator, is going to help run that meeting. It's going to be a hybrid meeting, here in person here upstairs at the select board meeting room, but also available through Zoom. So I just wanted to put that reminder out to folks and I believe Diane just posted, that you will be in attendance at that meeting. So that is a public posted meeting for you folks. And you can attend in any way you would like. Also reached out to the chairs of various committees and boards to alert them to this meeting, so that they're aware as well that it's taking place.
Jeremy, we kind of have a sense of what the goal of that meeting is. Does the public have a sense? Have we communicated, what to expect, what it's about? Last time we were pretty clear that Bob Murchison was going to present his idea. And we kind of left it at that. And we let it be a free for all from based on that, without the select board weighing in at all. We asked some questions, that was it. How is this being, I shouldn't say advertised, but how is it being announced? And how do we help the public understand what to expect, what the goal is, and whose goal, etc., that sort of thing?
Sure, great questions. It's a challenge.
It's something we need to think about a little bit, I think.
Right. I mean, in fact, it's not your meeting. So that's
Right.
one thing. So, it's coming from, I've had several conversations with Mike. It sent him a lot of background information as well. He's watched the video of the meeting when you discussed it last. I imagine he'll, be discussing, something with the developer as well. So in many ways, it's up to Michael as running the meeting, how he would like to structure the meeting. Imagine it's going to be fairly similar to last time with some presentation and maybe some updates and then some discussion. But it's certainly not being advertised as any sort of decision-making meeting.
Yeah, that's good that people understand that right in the beginning. It'll kind of be up to Mike to make an introduction that lets people understand that.
Yeah.
That's why I push for it not to be a select, we're in session, but not a select board sponsored meeting, you know what I mean?
That's right, exactly.
Mike's perfect because he's a real estate partner at Robinson and Cole, so how could you go wrong?
Well, I think he has to understand that, it's not a decision-making meeting. It's not a select board
And
meeting.
very clear to Mike, and he knows that. He knows.
He's very good.
No, he'll be great. We have a question for Mary.
Oh, yeah, Mary.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you covering this. I was curious about the agenda and the format, so this is helpful. This is pretty helpful. Is Mike functioning as a facilitator in his role as the moderator of the town, or is he functioning just as someone who has a skill set to facilitate this type of a meeting?
The latter, and just as one that's able to do that.
Okay, so it's not really as town moderator. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Since he recently re-volunteered for back in the town, we figured let's burn him out in the first before his first town meeting.
Yeah, this will do it.
If elected, I will not run.
All right. Anything else on that?
No,
I had a quick question on something that's not on this list or whatever. I'm just gonna. Are we still opening bids for the RFQ for the tip tomorrow?
yes.
Our proposals? Not bids,
Yep.
what a statement of
They're due
qualifications.
tomorrow. Actually, one was received today.
Was
so-
it? Okay, very good. And there's no cost in these at all, like your negotiation, correct? Yeah, just
It
strict
needs to-
qualification.
Yeah, it needs to be purely qualifications based, then we can negotiate. So it's all a qualifications based process.
No second sealed or whatever. Okay.
But not
All
even a
right,
fee. There's no fee delivered at all, just qualifications. and, scope
Okay.
of what they can do and what their thoughts are on, how to tackle it, that sort of thing. But there's absolutely no fee included. Mass DOT made it clear and the MPO made it clear that it needed to be fully quality based.
Yeah, I saw that email.
Hmm.
Do you have a selection team picked out?
Yeah, I think we discussed that at one of your last meetings.
Okay.
Heidi, Sean, you, Eric, Marion, and myself.
Okay. Good. So I'll also look for any correspondence on that. And like I said, I'm just very excited for that one. Okay.
Can I ask a
Anything
question?
else?
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
Paul. Sure.
So on the Sherborn History Center and Museum, we had asked our congressman to put in an earmark for us on that. Do we know what happened to that?
I haven't heard back on that, Paul. I'll check in. I haven't heard if that's stuck.
Great, thank you. So other than that, I'm ready to move to adjourn.
All right. I'm gonna take that as a motion.
I'm ready to
Um,
second.
And I have a second. Very good. All in favor, Stephen,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Paul,
Bye.
Marianne,
Aye.
and I want to talk about goals some more, so I'm gonna say nay. right. Thank you all.
You won't
And I
have
will not be seeing you on
order.
the 23rd, but I'll be seeing you our next Thursday meeting after that. I think we're going a little off week, so I think we're gonna have 2 off Thursdays, and then I think it might be like November 7th or something like that. So the next meeting.
And we have next Wednesday though, too, where we're in session, but not,
That's you guys.
like, yeah, I know.
All right. Good luck with that. All right. See you later.
Ciao, guys.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend.
You too.